Well, today I want us to walk together through the 23rd Psalm, and I hope I will be able to open some insights for you that might have deep meaning in the living of your life each day. I say this psalm each night before I go to sleep, and as I say it, I think about the meanings that I've pulled out to share with you today, and then every morning when I wake up, I say it again, and it really has brought comfort and peace and direction to my life. And even as a retiree, I still need those things, as do each of us. So I'm reading to you from a different translation. You can't buy this Bible, but you can find it online and download the whole thing. It's called the Easy Bible Translation, EASY, easy. And this is a psalm that David wrote, and it tells us how God takes care of his people. Hear these words: "The Lord takes care of me like a shepherd with his sheep. I have everything that I need. He takes me to green fields where I can rest. He leads me by streams of water where I can drink. He gives me new strength in my life. He is my guide to the right paths. He does this to give honor to his name. I may walk through a valley that is as dark as death, but I will not be afraid of any danger. This is because you are with me, Lord. Your stick and your shepherd's pole protect me from danger. You prepare a big meal for me while my enemies watch, and you put olive oil on my head. You bless me so much that my cup is completely full. I am sure that you will always be good to me, and you will love me all the days of my life, and that will never change. And I will live in the house of the Lord for as long as I live." From the Easy Bible. Now, as I share with you these 6 verses, I'm going to read them to you out of the King James, because most of you aren't, well, some of you might be, but most of you are not as old as I am. But I memorized the 23rd Psalm. My parents made sure of that, but it was out of the King James Version. So I'm going to read the King James, and I'm going to read some of the other translations that I have picked along the way, and I hope it will enlighten our time together. But before we start, some humor. And I told the second service this was in honor of David Ring, who always shares some humor during that service. And so this is about one of the books in the Bible. All men should make coffee for their women. It says so right in the Bible. Hebrews. So if you ever go to get a cup of coffee, you can remember that. Well, the psalm I want us to look at, it really needs to be understood as it's become for me a daily thing, a daily saying, a daily memory, a daily reading, if you will. Because it really begins to talk about how we might radically center our lives in God and change sometimes the way that we're thinking. So we were called to claim a place in God's household, to claim a place in God's kingdom here on this earth and in his heavenly kingdom as well. So to study the psalm puts us at, I think, the very heart of the gospel and proclaims the truths of the gospel. And you can compare its words easily with what Jesus had to say. And so we pray the psalm because by saying it, by praying it, by reading it, by studying it, we come to mean what it says. We come to live what it says, to be what it says. And that's what I hope what we say today will help. Now, you and I want to flourish in our life. At least I hope that's what you desire. I do. And I want to believe the best about God and to cultivate develop my trust in God. So from Jeremiah's writings, the prophet Jeremiah, the 17th chapter, he says, "Blessed is the person who trusts in the Lord and has made the Lord his hope and confidence. He is like a tree planted along a riverbank with its roots reaching deep into the water, a tree not bothered by heat nor worried by long months of drought." sometimes the cottonwood that grow along the Rio Grande. We thought about that way, but last summer you could walk across the river in places. So I hope they get enough water to allow those trees to grow. But what we understand is that life is difficult. Life is tough. CNN Health put out a little piece last week that caught my attention and fits what I want to say to you this morning. And it comes from one of the favorite characters. CNN Health reported that Elmo of Sesame Street asked people how they were doing. His kind-hearted Twitter, which is now I think X, it said this: Elmo is just checking in. How is everybody doing? Well, he had thousands and thousands of responses. He got an earful, to say the least. And I want to share some of those responses with you. But those thousands of responses reflected the people who would say to him, "We're not doing so well, Elmo." And it's not surprising with the grinding war in the Ukraine, the potential famine in Gaza, and the loss of life and homes and the rubble there, the endless reportings of mass shootings in our own country, and young people in America struggling with anxiety and depression to the point that we have identified a mental health crisis in our nation, especially among our young people. It's been somewhat of a cold and dark winter. And so that sort of gives you the background for the responses that come to Elmo, who people unburden themselves to this fuzzy little puppet. So listen to some of the things they said, just a few. Elmo, each day, the abyss we stare into grows a unique horror, one that was previously unfathomable in nature, or our inevitable doom, once accidentally accelerated in years or in months, now accelerated in hours, even minutes. However, I did have a good grapefruit earlier. Thank you for asking. Another one: every morning I cannot wait to go back to sleep. Every Monday I cannot wait for Friday to come. Every single day and every single week for life. Elmo, I'm depressed and broke. Elmo, I'm my lowest. Thanks for asking. Elmo, I've got to level with you. We are fighting for our lives. And the last very brutal, honest reply reads like this: Elmo, I'm going to be real. I am at my blanking limit. I don't read those blanks in church. And so you can see that Elmo learned that it's important to ask questions, and they put out on Twitter from Sesame Street, this is above Elmo's pay grade. Yeah, isn't that the truth? So my bedtime routine comes from really looking carefully at the psalm, and I want to share some of my insights with you. First of all, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The word shepherd in the day in which David lived was a term used for the king. The king was to shepherd his kingdom. He was to take care of them, provide for them, protect them, all those things that we see mentioned in the 23rd Psalm. Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Another way to say it, the Lord is my shepherd, I have everything I need. And I say the Lord is my shepherd, he gives me everything I need. And here's the biggest problem for us in this country and other countries is that we have a real hard time separating needs from wants. In our society and its culture, and the advertising we may see here and there or read about pushes us to want everything we don't need. So what do we need? You and me. Just simple. If I'm in the Ukraine, if I'm in Gaza, I'm looking for 2 or 3 things: food, water, hopefully something to put over my head, some shelter. And if I'm lucky, someone who loves me, someone I can talk to, a companionship. Basic, simple needs. And beyond that, tends to be for me, I don't know about you, it tends to be my wants. And sometimes our wants get us in trouble. We have some of the greatest credit card debt going on right now in this country because we want more than we can pay for. So our culture has pushed us there, and we're driven there. So it's hard to imagine living with only, quote, the necessities of life. But so many people in this world do, some of them living on the streets of our own city and in many, many other nations. You remember the story that Jesus told? The disciples were going along and they were grumbling and griping. One said, the strap on my sandal has broken. I'm hungry, Jesus. Where are we going to sleep tonight, for Pete's sake? My clothes are wearing out. The bottom of my robe is all tattered. And Jesus stopped and said to them, hey, God takes care of those needs. He feeds the birds of the air who don't plant crops and don't harvest crops. How much more is he going to take care of you, one of his children? He said, look out into the valley at the flowers. They're beautiful. Some of the most beautiful of all God's creation are the flowers that grow. He said, look at how beautifully they're clothed. And Jesus said, how much more will our Father clothe us than he does the flowers in the field? So he sort of set the tenor for them, He said, don't worry about those kinds of things. But so many people don't have their needs being met today in this world in which you and I live. And I want to applaud you as a congregation because you have figured out how to help that, because I think that it's only by us, not just in the church but in other organizations, who help to meet people's needs by helping over at Zuni by providing those weekend backpacks so those kids have food to take home and get through the weekend, and the food boxes that you handed out this Christmas, the truck that comes and you unload food boxes once a month, and Tim, bless his heart, for growing the vegetables and sharing it with the community. All those kind of things help to meet the needs of people who can't meet those needs. Because sheep, if you think about it, the shepherd's caring for sheep who can do very little for themselves. And so the shepherd helps to meet those needs of the sheep. Second verse, he maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. Another way of saying that, another translation, he takes me to green fields where I can rest. And he finds me quiet pools of fresh water. Now, you may not realize, but most shepherds don't own their flock, but they get up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning during David's and Jesus' days, and they take the sheep out to graze. And come 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, the heat of the day, they take them to, they try to find a green pasture where the sheep, it says, can rest, can lay down. He makes me lay down. The shepherd makes the sheep lay down. You know why he makes them lay down? They can't digest their food while they're standing there wandering around. You have to lay down to be able to digest their food, to chew their cud. And so he gives them a place to digest their food and to rest and renew themselves. That's what that green pasture is all about. And then sheep won't go drink out of moving water, like a bubbling brook or a river running down. They want still water. They'd like it to be cool and fresh, of course, so would we, because they're frightened by that movement. So the shepherd takes them to a still place of cool, fresh water. Sometimes they'll put their feet, so they have to be able to see into the water to be able to bend down and to drink. And so the shepherd is aware of his sheep, and he does those very careful things as he cares for them, refreshing their life with rest and renewal and still water. Verse 3. From the King James, he restores my soul. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. I always wondered, what does that mean, name's sake? Until I started looking and studying the psalm. Another way of putting it is, he restores my soul, giving me new strength to give honor to his name. Restores the soul. The soul is the most important part of us, our soul. And the psalmist says, the shepherd restores the soul. So when it gets to lie down and rest and eat and drink water, it begins to have new and revived strength for the rest of the day. So the shepherd knows that, and he restores the soul. Walking in paths of righteousness. Righteousness, when you look it up, it talks about things like character and telling the truth. It talks about things like mercy and forgiveness, of looking at our actions, looking at our words, that they're right and correct, that we then go down right paths, correct paths, moral paths. And then for his name's sake, remember that God made a covenant with the people of Israel. That's his name's sake. He leads them in the paths of righteousness for his nation, his chosen people. God said, you are my people, I'll be your God. The chosen people of Israel. And so that's what it means, I think, to understand the renewal of our soul and to follow paths of righteousness. The fourth verse. Yea, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Another way of saying it, even when I walk through the deepest, darkest valley, I will not be afraid of any danger because you are with me. Your shepherd's rod and staff comfort me. When I said the 23rd Psalm, I didn't want to say the valley of the shadow of death. I didn't want to think about that. I didn't want to push that into my consciousness at that point. But it does happen. But death comes in many other ways to us while we're still living alive in this body. Things like loneliness, depression, mental illness, disappointments, losing a spouse, losing a loved one, losing a house, losing a car because we can't make the payments. Those kind of things. The shepherd is trying to say, the psalmist is trying to say that when we get to those kinds of dark things in our life, unpleasant things, that he walks with us through those things. And when you begin to understand God and have faith that that happens, you come out on the other side, you begin to see your future with God because he walks with us through those difficult kinds of things. And the good news, if you want to see the good news of this psalm, it is that God is with us through the most difficult, darkest of times. And we begin to come out on the other side and see our future. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. So, another way of putting that is, you prepare a banquet for me while my enemies watch and welcome me as an honored guest. You bathe my head with oil, and my cup overflows with blessings. Prepare a banquet in the presence of my enemies. I got to looking at that and see what the commentaries said, and they're saying, it sort of equates to what it was like to be in junior high and high school, be the last one chosen for the team, to be the one that went to sit in the cafeteria and nobody would sit beside you or let you sit at their table, prepare a banquet for you. The Lord hosts the banquet and makes the invitation, and the enemies are the people who have pushed others to the fringe. Call them outcast, push them out. And can you see how the Lord's prepared that banquet for them so that people can say, hey, we're all in this life together. We're all invited to the banquet table. And that's what we'll do in a moment when we share the sacrament of Holy Communion. All of us are invited. Whether you're a member of this church or any church, you're invited to take part in the Lord's Supper. So God invites them as the host to be honored guests at this banquet. God hosts the banquet. Anointing with oil was a part of what happened in the days that David and Jesus lived. You would now anoint a ruler or a king with oil. And so to have that said, anoint your head with oil, was quite an honor and quite a thing. But to the shepherd, oil had another meaning. And that is when the sheep would get burrs and things in their fur, and if it didn't get it out, it would pull the fur closer and closer together and would pull it almost out, and the sheep would be in great pain and distress, and the shepherd would use oil to be able to relieve those thorns and burrs from the sheep's wool. You remember we did that with our kids when they stuck gum in their hair? We used oil to get the gum out. In fact, they stuck it in my hair once, and my wife used oil to get the gum out of my hair. So that kind of anointing. And then I love the way it's put in other translation, my cup overflows with blessings. Not a liquid, not the wine or the water, but with blessings. The blessings of God, kindness and mercy and forgiveness and new chances and new opportunities overflows with those blessings. And the last verse, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Another way to put that is your beauty, goodness, and love chase after me every day of my life, and your house will be my home for the rest of my life. So God following, God chasing after us. Sometimes God is seen as the hound of heaven. He doesn't make us do anything, but he does chase after us. He does want us, and he does encourage us, follows us, chase after me every day of my life. Now, the last sentence is what brings me great peace and comfort at my age, and with some of the things I go to see doctors about. I will live in your house the rest of my life. I will live in God's house, in the Lord's house, the rest of my life, in this world, in this body, and in the next. I don't know about you, but that brings great comfort to me. I can go to sleep and wake up every morning when I say this psalm because I know that that's true. I trust in that. Dwell in God's house. It's the land of the living. It's not hell. Jesus said, as his life was coming to an end, and he knew as he moved toward Jerusalem that he would be crucified, and he said to the disciples, I'm not going to be here much longer. But in my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go and prepare a place for you, so that where I am, you may be also. Jesus said, in my Father's house, there's a place for each one of us individually. Each one of us in my Father's house. That's what the shepherd was saying. And I will live in my Father's house forever. I believe that. I believe that place for me and for all of you. And that sustains my life and sustains my living in this world where you and I find ourselves. And it's a powerful kind of thing. I have a little story I want to close with. It's written a long time ago. Two ministers went on a holiday, and they were hiking in the Welch Hills, high on the moors, and they met a little shepherd boy and began to talk to him. A little boy caring for his family sheep. He didn't know anything except how to take care of sheep. No education whatsoever. Couldn't read, couldn't write. But they began to try to teach him the 23rd Psalm. They only got through the first verse. The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. And so they said, when you get to the word my, the Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is my, that's this finger. They said, grab that finger and remember what we've taught you. The Lord is my shepherd. So these two pastors went back the next year. They knocked on the little boy's, the door on the little boy's home, and the mother came and offered him a glass of milk, and they saw his picture on the mantle. They mentioned that we met your son last year, and she said he died in the winter caring for the sheep. And it's a very curious thing. When we found him, his right hand was grasping this next to last finger on his left hand. The Lord is my shepherd. Interesting story. You never know God is all you need until God is all you have. You never know God is all you need until God is all you have.